Hello, hello. Welcome to Sons of Ours. It's Jacob Machado here with
Tony Davis.
And we are approaching Christmas.
Okay, some of us are in the midst of...
I'm not supposed to talk about that, Tony.
Well, this will be posted after, so go ahead and gloat.
All right. Well, I was done with finals 2 days before everybody else because I had some credits from my university days, and Tony is not happy with me.
Ridiculous. And, some of us are still studying. Some of us are still trying to fulfill our vocations here in the seminary.
I'm still studying. It's
Jacob's on vacation.
Just not class material.
Exactly.
So, we're recording a podcast now in the midst of finals week, but we're looking forward to Christmas. And Tony came up to me and said, I've got a great idea for a podcast. I want to talk about how great our families are.
Yes.
And my response was, Tony, I don't know what you asked for Christmas, but I'm not going to help you butter up your parents because we know that our listener base is 60% our parents.
100%. I just want that Red Ryder BB gun, okay? I can't help it.
So I made a compromise with him. I said, fine, we can do that, but we're going to post this one after Christmas, so it won't help you.
That's right. My family, we do Epiphany presents, so
this will
still work out.
I've been bested.
No, I don't know, maybe it's, so I'm approaching ordination, praise God, to the diaconate in February, and something that I've been super thankful for, and I've just been praying with all semester as kind of this call to orders from Archbishop Aquila has been approaching, and I've just been thinking about how blessed I am to how I grew up, the good things, the bad things, my family, my friends, all of the different aspects that help form me to be the man that I am today, or the boy pretending to be the man that I am today. And I just, that's been my prayer for the past few months, is just this kind of theme of gratitude specifically towards my family. And the more time I spent, I spent a lot of time with my family this summer. And so the more time I spend with them, the more I just realize, wow, I am incredibly blessed. Not only for my parents, but my siblings as well. We all fight, but we all love each other as well. So it's been huge. And so I figured around the Christmas season, the Christmas time, what better time to talk about family than the time we're all about to gather and fight over Christmas dinner and laugh and cry together or whatever.
Yeah, and as broad of a topic as that is, we didn't want to just kind of come in and meander and kind of share side stories that may or may not connect. So we did bring a guest in whose family is important to him, who's been influential to his own vocation story. And so we'll kind of do twofold by having a seminary in front of ours share his story, but also kind of just talk about family between them, all three of us.
Absolutely. I asked him if I could share this story. Should I share the story about how we met? Yeah. So our guest today, we went to college together, so we've known each other for quite some time now. I met him the first weekend of college. So if you listen to the podcast, the one that I kind of told my story, you'll know that I was not exactly enthusiastic about being Catholic. In fact, I was only there because I love my mom and she made me go. And so I go to church, and after church, they're having this meet and greet, and there's people everywhere. All the weird Catholics are around, and they're just super excited about life. And so I'm walking out with my friends, and this guy walks up to us. He's just so happy. Like, I've never seen anyone so, cultically happy. And he comes up to me and goes, "Hey, how's it going?" And I was like, "Hey, man, what's up?" And he's like, "What's your name?" I was like, "Oh, I'm Tony, I'm from St. Louis." Blah. He's like, "Oh, that's awesome, man. What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm in engineering, so probably mechanical engineering or something like that." And he goes, "Oh, that's great. I'm going to be a saint." And that's when I knew that that's when I thought I knew that I wasn't supposed to be Catholic, because I just thought everyone there was so weird and I didn't understand what it was. And that man's name, lo and behold, 2 years later, we entered seminary together, and his name is Ryan Kent. So Ryan, please say hello to us on the podcast.
Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having me. That story is 100% true. I was very excited about life and everything in college. I still am.
Totally.
I may have toned it down just a little.
Yeah, you also got pretty freaking cool over the past 6-7 years.
Thanks, Tony.
When I met Ryan, it was almost, I'm prideful, so I'll just say I was super cool, and I thought I had it all together, and I just thought Ryan was the weird kid. And now Ryan's the guy that's bagging peaks and skinning up Cameron Pass and slaying crazy ski lines and stuff.
Yeah, I think we just checked Ryan's Strava, and I think he's been backcountry skiing 52 times in 38 days or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's correct.
So
That's what I saw.
Yep.
So yeah, Ryan, it's been awesome to walk with you these past like 8 years. We from that moment, we didn't really hang out until we entered seminary together, pretty much, which I found hilarious.
I find a common thread here because Tony and I had heard about each other but didn't talk once until I started seminary. So
This is true.
this
is true.
Anyway, so Ryan, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, first I want to say about Tony. Like one of my first memories of Tony.
Great.
It's a great start. It's a great start.
We had this like crazy focus missionary at the CSU campus named John Leindecker,
Totally crazy.
and I'm sure like Tony's explained it before, but like he somehow got Tony and his friend to come to our Bible study one day, our freshman year, and they just like show up, and my very first impression of him was just like, wow, like who's this stoner? Like I can't believe.
Probably was stoned.
I can't believe John got him to go to Bible study, but like, whoa, because I was always kind of like the good kid, like followed the rules and did what I was told, and so yeah, meeting people like you, Tony's like, whoa, like what's it like?
Well, I don't even remember that, so maybe I was.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
So
We had a good thing going up there in Fort Collins, though. We're very blessed, Ryan and I both, as well as Deacon CJ Mast and Owen Lamarta. We're all in seminary. We were all at CSU at the same time, so we are very blessed for where we came from.
oh yeah, a lot of vocations coming from up there at CSU.
And, I mean, you grew up around there, so that wasn't even, like, super far from your home, right?
Yeah. CSU is about 20 minutes from where I grew up, so
Holy cow.
yeah, not too far at all.
That's incredible.
Kind of stayed in the same sort of 50-mile radius my whole life. So
Hey, you're branching out now with all the backcountry skiing. But,
yep.
yeah, I mean, yeah, if you want to go ahead and share with the listeners kind of, like, what was it like growing up up in Loveland? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, for sure. So right now, 26 years old, born in 1993. Just a little bit about my parents before we get into my life. Like they're both reverts to the faith. So that like they both have these like very beautiful stories about how they kind of came back to the faith, came back to the Catholic Church. Both helped each other grow in their faith. But so that was kind of the situation I was born into. Is my parents had both recently come back to the faith. They're married, and they had me.
And, like, not in their 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a little on the older spectrum of things. If am I wrong?
No, that's true. Yeah. So my mom, I think she was 29 when she had me.
Okay,
and my
that's
dad
young.
was 39.
That's young.
So yeah,
Oh
yeah. So yeah, kind of have an old dad.
no, your dad.
Sorry, Dad.
Yeah, but your dad can still bike farther and faster than pretty much anybody I know. So
No, that is true. But yeah, he's very wise too. It's fun having old dad. A lot of wisdom.
he's not old. Anyway, sorry.
But, yeah. So just grew up in Loveland, Colorado, about 50 miles north of Denver, city of about 50,000 people. Just like really pleasant, small little town. I mean, not that small, but small for me.
Yeah. The land of love.
Yeah, not compared to the Nebraska boy right here.
Okay.
But so a really cool decision my parents made is like they knew the Catholic faith was important to them, but they knew like they didn't exactly have the knowledge that they needed to like really instruct my brother and I in the faith and raise us in the faith. So they just from a very young age they decided to send us to Catholic school. So that was just like a really big part of my early life is Catholic school.
I've seen pictures.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but you've been classmates of CJ Mast for how many years now?
That is true. Yeah, our fellow seminarian CJ Mast,
Deacon CJ Mast.
Deacon CJ Mast.
Thank you, Tony. We've known each other since elementary school. We both went to St. John the Evangelist Catholic
Holy
school.
cow.
From elementary school, he was 2 years ahead of me, so we knew of each other. But we went to middle school together. We both went to CSU, and that's where we really got to know each other. So yeah, just another cool experience of God kind of raising these vocations, raising these friends together.
Yeah, and that seems to be a theme with St. John the Evangelist up in Loveland is like,
Yeah.
there's got to be, our theory is that there's just all those holy men and women that are up there just praying for vocations at all times in the Adoration Chapel.
Yeah, I know. And let it be known, St. John the Evangelist in Loveland, Colorado, has the most seminarians of any parish in
This
the
is true.
Archdiocese of Denver right now. And my theory, like hopefully it's not too strange, but Loveland's kind of the retirement community of northern Colorado. So I have this theory that there's some just like very holy old Catholic lady who has just like died this horribly painful death living in Loveland and like offered her suffering for vocations from Loveland, Colorado.
Wow.
And this is just a theory, you know?
Yeah, just a theory.
Just a theory.
Not really that strange.
Yeah.
Huh. But I mean, in all honesty, though, like that's a real thing, and it's very possible that could be the case.
Yeah. Who knows?
Wow. So you come from that Catholic community
Yeah, exactly.
up in Loveland.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, my experience in Catholic school is like, I just received a very strong foundation in the faith, kind of like learning the facts of the faith. But one thing that's kind of just common between me and my classmates is we learn all the facts of the faith, but I don't know, there's just like something there where we just kind of learn the faith as like sort of answers on a test. I could kind of recite the 10 Commandments, all this stuff, but there's still just like another level that like I didn't get to of this like real living faith, kind of like this real relationship with God, relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So even in middle school, I was just kind of like, I can't wait to leave Catholic school. Like it's kind of a drag, just really small. It's like I'm kind of done with this stuff, done with the Catholic thing. So, just kind of bored at Mass on Sundays, just dreams. I knew I was going to a public high school, so I was just like dreaming about that. It's like, oh my gosh, all these people, all these girls, you know?
You're sitting in the pew looking at the girls around you like, this is what public school is going to be like.
I know. Maybe I will meet them someday. No, that's exactly it.
So you're in middle school, you're kind of, your parents have invested in your faith education, and then in freshman year of college, you want to be a saint. So there's a little bit of a divide here. How do we get from that to freshman year at college?
I
think that has to do with another seminarian that is in our class, John Stapleton, who was Ryan's youth minister. Is that it? Is that the connection?
Well, he definitely played his role.
He is John Stapleton is also, he's a third theologian, so he's in my class, and he was a youth minister up there in Loveland for a while, and so we always joke with John that, John, you're the reason that CJ and Ryan are in the seminary, because John's older than all of them, but CJ's a deacon already, and it's just so funny.
Yeah, and John's funny too because he's kind of this sort of ex-frat guy turned seminarian.
Yes.
And so just like everyone loves him, just like super fun guy, and you'll hear more about him.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have him on here at some point.
So
what happened there during that high school time?
So kind of what happened, just a lot of hopes, a lot of expectations going into public high school. I'm like, let's just kind of leave all the Catholic stuff behind. It's just sort of boring. Like, I'm not really like what I want right now. Mm-hmm. I got to my freshman year of high school. I was just super excited. I just tried to get involved in as many things as possible. Like, went out for the basketball team, did track. I really loved music, so I got involved in a bunch of bands, marching band, jazz band, wind symphony. Even joined like ping pong club. That was kind of short-lived though.
Wow. High school, I'm going to be so cool in high school. I'm joining the ping pong club and band.
Oh, yeah.
And chess club. And
that was the plan. But
I'm sorry, stereotypes
I
are just
don't have a lot to talk about. I wasn't that cool, but that was funny.
Yeah. No. That was funny. I know.
All right, Ryan, I promise we're going to let you tell your story.
Yeah, no worries. I like the banter. But academically too, I was in like the IB program, so like just kind of this rigorous like honors program, and just tried to do everything as best as I could, just throw myself into everything. That's just kind of my personality. And so just by the end of that year, I was just like utterly exhausted. What I thought would just be this incredible year at high school, just living it up, taking advantage of every opportunity possible, ended up just wearing me down so much and just being like so exhausting. And and another thing just on my mind was after just kind of leaving the little bubble of Catholic school, it's just like more sheltered and just good kids there, which is a good thing. But going to public high school, I mean, you just see like so much more, just like kids doing drugs, people just,
Yeah. Public school.
Yeah, public school, exactly. And
even in Loveland, Colorado, retirement community.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff does go on in Loveland.
Yeah, Loveland probably is better than most places, but still not totally protected, unfortunately. But yeah, so yeah, just seeing this stuff like really just caused me to kind of ask these deeper questions about life, like what will really make me happy? Like what should I really just commit myself to? You know, because like everything I was trying to do this year just left me exhausted and totally worn down.
Yeah.
So it was actually like that summer, I went on a vacation to Hawaii with my family.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sweet.
I know, it was pretty cool. And I was like really looking forward to that. Like freshman year was rough, but like, oh man, this like vacation to Hawaii is just gonna be great. Resting with my family. I always really liked my family too.
Yeah.
And we'll get more into that, but yeah. So I find myself in Hawaii and like looking forward to that. And the whole 2 weeks we were in Hawaii, I was just like totally miserable still. And I just like could not figure it out. Like what is going on here? Just absolutely miserable the whole time. But then toward the end of the trip, I mean, this is like this real grace, but I kind of realized that this misery, this sadness was actually like a sign from God. Like he's trying to tell me something. And he's trying to tell me that like nothing in the material world, nothing in the world around us would ever make me happy. And like that I am made for an infinite good. So the only thing that will ever make me happy would be God. And that maybe I should look back at all the facts, kind of all the ideas I learned in Catholic school and maybe try them out, you know? Like what's the harm in that? Like why not at least try it?
Yeah.
So yeah, just after that vacation, I'm just like, well, okay. I mean, I've tried everything else. Well, not everything else, but a lot of other things. Yeah, thankfully. And yeah, so I just like, let's just try like paying attention to mass, you know, and let's just maybe try praying at night before I go to bed. Let's try reading a chapter of the Gospels and just see where that takes me.
Wow. And you just kind of came to that.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It's just sort of more this personal thing. I'm just like, just try this out, you know?
Wow. What a grace.
Yeah. That's one of the things I've been thinking about is how grace hits each of our lives and how each of us, you know, we're free, and yet God is working with grace. And for whatever reason, it hits us at different times. Like it hit you in high school.
Yeah, I know.
I was similar. I had, you know, kind of the catechism faith, but I didn't have a personal faith.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And then it was like junior year of high school through other people's example of living a Catholic faith that was kind of dynamic and exciting and engaging. I was like, oh, maybe I should give that a try. And, you know, other people, it's not till after years and years of, you know, living away and then realizing, oh, this is home. So it's just, it amazes me. Like, just time and grace just doesn't make sense. Yeah. But it hits us.
I know. I totally know what you mean. And like I experienced this in high school. My dad experienced this in his 30s. And yeah, it's just a total mystery. But God at like all these different times, just calling people back to himself.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. So you try it out. You give God a shot.
Yeah. So I tried it out and like it actually started working. Like, I know, mind blown. I actually noticed this kind of peace and joy in my life and just more of this detachment. Instead of just worrying about every single little part of my life that was going on, like just focusing on following God and worrying less about things just left me more at peace and like gave me this deeper joy. It's like I kind of started to taste this sort of happiness and satisfaction that I was really thirsting for. Yeah. And so because of that, like I was really able to sort of step away from just kind of some of the illusions, kind of some of like the false promises of high school, like trying to be popular, you know, good at sports, whatever. And I was really honest with myself, and I thought, you know, I just love music, so like I just want to do band, you know, I just want to commit myself to band, even though it's not like the coolest thing. And when I did that year, like that's when I made the best friends I'd ever had before. Just sharing the experience of making music like that. Mm-hmm. Was just like a total grace from God, you know, even though it's not youth group or not church, you know, like I could just tell it was already this grace from God. So he was already working. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. So you make friends, you do band. I know you continued with that. You were in band at CSU.
Yeah.
Even. Yeah. So what's going on? I mean, was that just consistent through your whole life? Family supported you. You did band, went to college.
Yeah. So here's kind of more where my family starts to come in, and just like God really just kind of writing this beautiful story with my whole family. So like my junior year, that was the year where it's like, okay, like I'm liking this God stuff. I'm liking this Catholic stuff. I've heard about this youth group. Let's check that out. So I just kind of like go up to my parents. I'm like, hey, Mom, Dad, can I go to youth group?
I've heard of other stories where it's like parents will use youth group. Like you can be grounded or you can go to youth group. And then like a conversion happens. So the fact that you're like, can I go to?
No, exactly. Awesome. So yeah, my parents were just like, well, yes.
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah, please do.
I'm sure there's parents listening to this podcast praying, can my child please one day ask to go to youth group?
So call up the retirement communities in Loveland and have them pray for your kids. That's what we've learned.
That's what we've learned.
Exactly. I'll hook you up. Don't worry.
Yeah. Tell them you know Ryan Kent.
Yeah, exactly.
Instantly in.
Yeah. So yeah, start going to youth group and just like kind of just becoming more outward, more public with my faith. Like catch daily mass if I have an off period in the morning, and like regularly going to confession, at least trying. And yeah, so here's where my family really starts coming in is like I started having this conversation with my mom one day. I was just like, hey Mom, like I just went to confession this morning and like it was really great. When's the last time you went to confession? And she's like, oh, about that. And she told me like the last time she went to confession was like when she was a little girl, like at her first confession, because like she just kind of like fallen away and was sort of coming back to the faith, but just like hadn't quite made it back to confession yet.
Yeah.
So I was just like, really? Like just couldn't believe it, because I think growing up, I think like every little boy just assumes his mom is just like so holy.
Yeah.
Because like in second grade when she was teaching me all the prayers for First Communion, like Our Father and the Hail Mary, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like Mom is so holy. She just knows these prayers.
Did you write these prayers?
I know. Did you write these, Mom? These are just sound so holy.
These are incredible.
Yeah. And then, like later, like around this time, I found out too that my mom, she had never, like if she had learned these prayers, she just had kind of forgotten them. So she was teaching them to herself as she was teaching them to my brother and I for our First Communion. It was just like crazy. So yeah, I'm just like, oh Mom, you got to try going to confession.
You got to try it.
Yeah, you got to try it. And so she did. And I think it's kind of a difficult, jarring experience at first, but like the more she'd go back to it, the more she got used to it. And proud to say she's like a regular confessee today.
And like a super holy woman.
Yeah.
So like your dreams or your misconceptions as a child, they at least came to fruition.
I know. Yeah.
I remember the first time I met your family, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, holy cow, like it all makes sense now. Like how Ryan can be so full of joy and so full of love is because he received that from somebody. Yeah. Because I remember when I met your mom, just like the sheer look, the maternal care and the love that she showed to complete strangers, that she was meeting. Was just incredible. Mm-hmm. It was so beautiful. And so it all kind of clicked for me when I met your parents, like, oh, this is why Ryan, has such a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Whether he knows it or not, it's like we don't even realize what our parents are doing to us.
And I think you're right. Like I there are times where I've taken that for granted. And just like you being in seminary, meeting other guys, different types of families, I'm like, wow, I'm just so blessed.
Yeah.
So blessed to grow up with this family.
Yeah, I think what's amazing, I had this realization freshman year of college of, if you'd asked me before that, I'd be like, oh yeah, my parents, they're good, whatever. Like family's normal. We're just normal family, whatever. And then I start meeting people that come from a tougher family situation or whatever. And I'm like, oh, my family was really good.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why I deserved that or why I got that, but wow, that's a huge blessing. And sometimes we don't realize that looking like in the midst of it. It's only later. For myself, I was so focused on just my own life trajectory. It's like, wow, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Everything was in relation to me. And it wasn't until I'd grown a little bit and matured a little bit in college that I was able to start kind of seeing how other people's lives were parallel, not just as how they influenced me, but parallel in their own trajectory as well. And so just as your parents, had their conversion and then started raising you, and there's kind of this beautiful togetherness in that flowering of it, my parents have been faithful their whole life. I was baptized, and we've been going to mass, every Sunday since I can remember. But I didn't really realize what their faith life was. And it wasn't until I was really having my own personal conversion, junior year of high school, that I kind of saw alongside my dad having a deepening of his own faith. He was getting involved with like a men's Bible study at our parish and making these, Christian friendships with these guys, and just they were going deep, and they were starting to ask these profound questions about their life and how they were living the faith, and looking back on their life up to that point, and then making resolutions to, benefit themselves and their families. And I was like, wow, this was like a parallel.
Yeah.
I was going from catechism faith to like actual personal faith, and my dad was going from kind of a similar catechism faith, lived faith. Like he had trust and faith in the church. I don't think he ever doubted that. But it was becoming deep, and he was learning about it, and it was just kind of beautiful to see that. And I see, a similar parallel, kind of with you guys as well.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And yeah, just what I like to tell people, the really the really beautiful part about it all is just how God kind of used everyone in my family. Like obviously, he used my parents. They're the ones who sacrificed, sent my brother and I to Catholic school so we could receive this foundation. And then after this kind of faith was just like really awakened, like going from the catechism faith to this like lived relationship with God. Like God kind of used me as a witness, as an example to my parents. Mm-hmm. And being a seminarian, I meet like all sorts of different Catholic families, and you obviously have those Catholic families where it's just like the parents are super Catholic and they are just absolutely dedicated to just raising the kids like in the Catholic faith, doing everything possible, which is like a really good thing. It's really, really beautiful. Mm-hmm. But I think there's just a lot of families that think like, well, gosh, like we're not the perfect Catholic family. I'm sure every family has like doubts, like,
and I guarantee that family you're looking at and saying, wow, they're the perfect Catholic family, is not the perfect Catholic family.
Yeah, yeah.
And as much as we're doting on our families right now, and we interviewed David Hall, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his family and like how beautiful it is what the families have done for us. Like we could tell you the stuff that wasn't perfect. It's not like it might appear so, but even in the very good, there's challenges. And so I don't know. I just think there's like, wow, I can't be that, so we'll just kind of resign ourselves to how it is. And
no, that's so true, Jake. I totally agree. And and I think I just want like Catholic families to know is like God is just like so much bigger than your efforts to raise your kids with the faith,
Yeah.
Like looking at my family, it's like my parents sent us to Catholic school, but like they had just come back to the faith. Like they didn't know exactly what they were doing, but God could work with that, just that desire of my parents to bring our family up well in the Catholic faith. God used it, and he worked with my parents to me and my brother and I. He worked with my brother and I to kind of bring our parents closer to him, and it's just really beautiful.
And a lot of times, like, there's a couple things that are really beautiful to me. When you're a kid, you look up to your parents like they're superheroes. Your mom, the holiest woman in the world.
Yeah.
Your dad's probably, Mr. Straw. I trust him with anything. Your dad. And when you're a kid, that's how you see your parents. You just see them as superheroes or saints or whatever you want to see.
Yeah.
And that a lot of times kids grow up and forget that.
Mm-hmm.
They almost grow past that. They think they do, right? And they lose sight of what is actually going on in the family. But what's crazy to me is that when you talk to guys in the seminary who have like prayed through their childhood, prayed through their maturing, they all go back to gratitude.
Yeah.
Even the guys that have really, really kind of broken families.
Yeah.
Because we realize that, oh my gosh, my parents were just learning how to do it too.
Yeah.
My mom was just learning those prayers.
Mm-hmm.
Better yet, my mom was just learning how to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like we go through life and we hold people to such high standards, and a lot of people, they hold their parents to like the highest standard possible.
Yeah.
Like, oh, my dad did this to me, or my mom did this to me. Yes, some people have a very extreme and sad, heartbreaking stories, but a lot, I'd say the average is that it's just an unrealistic expectation of we hold our parents to this standard when we're growing up that is impossible. Mm-hmm. I was the youngest of four, but like my oldest sister, when my parents were, had her and she was in high school, They didn't know how to handle a teenager. It was their first time doing it. Like, how can you hold them to some standard of being expert parents when they've never done that before? Right? And I think oftentimes that's what we do. We just hold our parents to this impossible standard when we're growing up, that the only way to get over that is to really look back on our childhood, to look back on our lives and realize what was going on. As I was maturing, as I was growing humanly, physically, spiritually, so were my parents.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so
And
true.
I think that just comes with like becoming an adult and seeing like, holy cow, like my parents were my age. You know, my parents were just trying to figure it out too.
There's a natural kind of maturation process where you kind of resist. You're like, oh, I'm going to create my own way. And I just kind of, my parents don't know anything. But I think almost everybody has an experience where it's like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. I need to call dad or I need to call mom and figure out, maybe they do know something. They took care of me and they took care of this situation. And I think you're right that when we're young, we're just like, man, they just know how to do this because that, you know, you've never known them as not mom or dad. And so they obviously just have all the answers. And then, you know, I hit 25 years old and I realized that my parents my dad at 25 had 2 kids, you know, a 3-year-old and a baby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, I wouldn't know how to handle that right now.
Yeah.
He was figuring that out, you know. And now at 29, I'm like, oh crap. They have 3 kids now. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm in seminary. I'm figuring out my own way. Yeah. But they were figuring out their own way too. And so like, even when there were times of, I guess, sadness or disappointment, I recognized that they were learning, they were growing. And there, you can look at it one of 2 ways. You can say, you know, my parents owed me this, that, or the other thing. Or you recognize that, okay, there's a certain, you need to take care of your family and your kids responsibility, but also if you just accept it as gift, you know, what have they done for you? They've done so much.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I try to tell people, especially when I'm talking to college students who come from a broken family. I always try to tell them, well, you know, now that you're out of college or in college, you're trying to learn about life. You're trying to figure yourself out. Put yourself in your parents' shoes. You know, when my dad had this huge heart attack this summer, that's what I was just kind of thinking about. Like, man, all the things that I was grateful for him, and all the wounds, anything that negative memory that I could think of, was automatically thrown away just by putting myself in his shoes.
Yeah.
Of thinking, what were the pressures he was under? What was, he trying to do? Who was he at the time? And the second I did that, I was like, yeah, that's not even something to worry about. I can't hold him to that standard.
Yeah. Well, I think like that's just really the key. Like for me, for anyone to kind of, to transitioning to like a real adult relationship with your parents, you know, is like for the kids to realize like, put themselves in their parents' shoes and realize like, wow, like, no, they're just human beings too, trying to figure this out. They're not perfect. They made their mistakes. But then like for the parents too, not to kind of hold on to this image of like, oh yeah, I'm the parent. I know everything. Like I'm in perfect control. But for the parents to kind of be open with their mistakes, their shortcomings too, you know, and just to talk about it, you know, like, when we were growing up, like this happened and that was kind of difficult or hard, but just to talk about it and be like, like we're figuring this out together. To
not go too far to the other extreme of like, I focus on, you talk to your parents and they're like, I didn't do this well and I didn't do that well and I could have done this better. Like I've had some of those conversations with my own parents and I'm like, yeah, but you did this great and you did this great and you did this great and I learned this and like you're still doing it and you're still growing, you know. Is this reality, the dynamic reality of life is that.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Like, there's no need for apologies for your average growing up and learning how to parent and learning how to do, like, you don't apologize for that if love is present, right? If love is present, that washes away any shortcoming.
Yeah.
And so, like, even that same thing happened to me. Like, last year I was driving to Tennessee with my parents. It's just me and my mom awake. My dad's passed out in the back seat, and she's just apologizing to me about she heard my podcast. Or she heard a podcast that I was talking about my family or something. And she felt so guilty. And I just looked at my mom and I was like, Mom, I love you. Like, you don't need to apologize for any of that. That's not your fault, right? We were growing, we were learning, we were living life, and it's difficult. Life is not easy. let alone easy when you're supposed to be leading 4 kids or 3 kids or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're all figuring out. So it's not like I need an apology from my parents. Like, it was actually more freeing for me to tell them, like, hey, thank you for everything you've done for me.
yeah.
Thank you for attempting to raise me in the faith. I'm sorry that I fell away, but I'm just thankful that you kept loving me.
Yeah, I know. Even that attempt is just, it's heroic, you
Yeah,
know? It's
Absolutely.
like you don't have to figure it out. You can't control your child's faith, but like, it's just heroic even to just attempt, even just the everyday duties of parenting, you know? And we just got to be grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's just like such a beautiful thing. And when every time I'm with Ryan or if I see his parents, I just think to myself, like, what a blessing Ryan had. You know, because you can meet people that just didn't have the best childhood. They didn't have parents that tried. They had parents that, neglected them. That's when I was in St. Louis, that's how it was. Like, I was the minority as far as having a good family, straight up minority. And I didn't realize it at the time. And now I look back and I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
I was the only one in my friend group that had a pair of parents, a couple that actually loved each other.
Yeah.
Like, what a gift. What
I
a
know.
gift that
And
is.
even being here in the seminary, like we meet guys who didn't have the easiest or best home lives growing up, but they just had these really powerful conversions, and God revealed to them their vocation, and they're still here in seminary. And yeah, but just looking at these guys, it's like, wow, it's like you just have like so much more to kind of fight through, to struggle with, And then looking at my life, I'm like, wow, like thank you, God, for just this, good family, good formation. So yeah, I totally relate, Tony.
Yeah. And it's like Jacob was saying, like, it's not that, the family life was perfect at all times, but coming to a more mature understanding of how we grew up, where we come from, all of those negative aspects kind of fall by the wayside. The second that we all grow in relationship to God, like the only reason my family, especially like my mom, my dad and I are so close is because we all have a relationship with Christ. I say that with confidence. Like they've just grown so much, and pushed me to grow more towards the faith. And I see that in various families. Like, I mean, your parents hosted us for Totus Tuus, a couple of years ago. It was just like their desire to love the church was present, right? And you could see it. It was palpable.
Yeah, and I think the boldness of even one family member to embrace that and strive for that can really free the rest of the family. I think we see that in our own families, but in other families, I look at like Trezor Lasue and her family of just this, this holy couple who has these daughters, and the mother dies young, but the father remains faithful and virtuous and does his best and brings up these. And you've got literally this family of saints now because of the boldness of one man to raise his daughters well, and then one makes the courageous decision to go to the Carmelite Carmel, and then like all the sisters go. And
Yeah.
I'm just looking at Tony here because I'm like, well, Tony's in seminary, he's got a brother in a religious life. Like it's just, there's this beautiful reality of freeing each other to embrace the Christian life and to encounter Christ when the family kind of goes for it. But again, oftentimes that's one at a time. Maybe it's mom early on, and maybe it's dad later, and maybe it's one of the kids later. God, like we talked about grace, you never know where it's going to hit. Maybe it's your faith right now, wherever you are, 16-year-old or 20-year-old, or all your kids are out of the house. It could be your faith that allows that, but let God work in it, And don't try and like grab onto it and like manipulate it, because it's not that's not going to be able to do anything if we're tied into how it needs to end up. But just loving God and moving forward.
Yeah. For sure.
So I don't know, Ryan. I think we end up talking more about our families than you, but thank you for leading us into that. I don't know. Do you have any other?
It's like a holy catapult.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was great. We were here to talk about our families. And
I don't know. Any last stories or things you want to share?
Final thought, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to drive home the point that we don't have to have come from the perfect families or create the perfect families. It's just that like God is so much bigger than that. like that's what I learned from my family. It's not like my parents were like, okay, we're going to raise him in the faith and he will be really into his faith and become a priest someday.
Mm-hmm.
They were just like, they just kind of kept giving their yes to God. Like, oh, like send our kids to Catholic school. Okay. Yes, God. You know? And that was enough, you know? And if you're a kid, you're a parent somewhere and your kids have fallen away, you're a kid who's come from a rough family, just keep giving your yes to God, and he will just work so much more than you ever could, just trying to control, manipulate, solve everything. It's kind of what I want to leave with.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, God continually opens doors, and we just have to walk through them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be frustrated if the door's closed. That's God's will.
Yeah.
So those little things, that little step forward, that little yes to God, that is what makes greatness. Is the yes in the small things leads to yes in the greater things. So,
I think of Saint Monica and Saint Augustine, the perennial example for families. But Monica, kind of grieved Augustine's life away from faith, but did everything she could to support him, to help him to be educated, and then prayed for him.
Yeah.
And later, it's much later in their life, they were able to share that faith. They had a shared mystical experience with the Lord, which is, a little bit more profound, but just on the same plane as growing closer to people in your family because you're both growing closer to Christ. And that small yes is big.
Yeah. And so in this Advent season, as we're approaching Christmas, I long to share with you guys the stories of our life. We could, all three of us, Ryan, Jacob, and I, could probably talk for hours about our families. But I just want us all to know, like Ryan said, the last word of baby steps, saying yes to God in the little things, and never losing hope. Advent is a time of hope for the second coming of Christ, resurrection. But also we cannot lose hope in this Advent season, and then in Christmas season. Hope that we will one day be united with Christ and one day with our families. Maybe we've got brothers, sisters, children that have fallen away. We can never lose hope. And so I just urge you to remain faithful, to stay in hope, to stay with hope, because it really will. It'll bring you through the hardest times, the toughest times, and it'll bring you back whenever the Lord opens that door. If you have hope, you will always walk through it. So,
Amen.
All right, well, thanks for joining us today. It's been Sons of Ours. We hope you have a blessed rest of the Christmas season from whenever you're listening to this, and a Happy New Year. Any last words, Tony?
Nothing. All right. Ryan, thank you so much. We're going to have you come on again and talk about pastoral years.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, you don't get off that easy. You're coming back.
You're one of those, we cut you off, so you're going to get back on and fix another episode.
All right, God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Christmas.